The cultural heart of the Makah tribe has always been the whale. The significance that the gray whale holds in Makah art and tradition is both profound and long-lasting. It follows through in even their tribal symbol, which depicts a thunderbird grasping a whale in its talons. For more than 2,000 years, this resource of meat, oil, and blubber has been a vital aspect of Makah culture. For centuries, the tribe prospered along the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Washington coast, within 5 villages consisting of roughly 4,000 individuals. Tradition began to crumble, however, when the arrival of Europeans in the late 1700s left much of the tribe to suffer from a transferred epidemic of smallpox, influenza, and other foreign illnesses. Fatalities plummeted the Makah populace. Generations of ancient tradition were at risk as the heavy loss loomed over the coast. In 1855, the Treaty of Nia Bay was signed, a mutual act of diplomacy that had a profound impact on the Makah tribe as a community. It allowed the Makah living around Juan de Fuca and Cape Flattery to keep their marine waters and their right to whale. In doing so, however, the tribe had to give up 90%, nearly 300,000 acres of their land in exchange. The covenant had devastating effects on the tribe, despite being a profound diplomatic foundation that affirmed the tribe's whaling rights in the coming decades. Around this time, and again in the early 20th century, non-native commercial whaling operations were pushing the gray whale population to the brink of extinction. By the 1920s, the Makahs voluntarily suspended their historical whale hunt, acknowledging the vulnerable situation that the species was in. They had plans to resume whaling when the gray whale population had rebounded, which turned out to be 70 years later. By the 1990s, the eastern North Pacific gray whale population had greatly recuperated. All commercial whaling in America was outlawed in 1970, which, combined with effort from activists, led to a remarkable recovery of the species. As a result of this success, gray whales in the eastern Pacific were removed from the list of endangered species in 1994. It was not too long after, in the fall of 1998, when the tribe came to the agreement that it was the appropriate time to resume the hunt, given federal approval. The Makah tribe's decision sparked nationwide debate and controversy, drawing the media and many animal rights groups into the issue on both sides. One prominent group at the forefront of the opposing side was the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, a marine activist organization that went through great lengths to prevent the Makah from following through with a successful hunt. Sea Shepherd believed that whales should not be killed under any circumstance, despite the fact that whaling had been a cultural foundation for the tribe since time immemorial. The Makah had gone 70 years and lived without killing a single whale, so the death of one at this point seemed unjustifiable in the eyes of Sea Shepherd. Other activists argued that allowing the Makah to hunt whales would prompt and encourage the reinstallation of large-scale commercial whaling. This is what made the tribe's decision a worry to many, as commercial whaling is what led to the near extinction of gray whales in the first place. For 8 months following the federal Makah whaling authorization in 1998, Makah whalers practiced and trained for the hunt by sea or canoe, encountering persistent protesters on the reservation land as well as many local news reporters. The first attempted hunt since roughly 1928 was conducted on May 10, 1999, just south of Cape Flattery. A swarm of protesters, including those from Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, disrupted the canoe whaling on the water, blocking any hopes of a successful hunt for the tribe. Coast Guard boats loosely followed the Makah canoe to prevent any protesting boats from exceeding the legal 500-meter radius. Another hunt was attempted 5 days afterwards on May 15th, but it had the same unsuccessful outcome.
The kill was quick, but still brutal. 3 blasts from a .50 caliber rifle and several harpoon strikes taking this massive giant of the sea down in less than 15 minutes.
It was in the early morning of May 17, 1999, when the Makah achieved their first triumphant hunt in more than 70 years. 2 harpoons thrown from the whaling canoe were thrust into the whale to prevent it from diving. Following this, a .50 caliber assault rifle delivered a fatal blow to the juvenile gray whale from a nearby support boat. The tribe's decision to make a modernized alteration was to assure a more humane death for the whale's sake, to prevent suffering. However, The decision was met with extreme anger from protesters, many of whom argued that the validity of the Makah's whaling rights went away when they strayed from tradition. Shortly after the whale had been killed, a boat from the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society arrived on the scene, honking its horn in protest of the event. Groups of whale watchers on boats traveled to the reservation after the whale had been towed to land, many of them yelling in objection.
The whole world's disgusted in what you've done.
This isn't disgusting? This isn't disgusting what you're doing here?
Be so proud. Look what you've done. Look what you've done.
Despite this, crowds of tribal members rejoiced from the water's edge. Whaling had always been central to Makah culture, so the positive impact that this sort of cultural rebirth had on the tribe was of great significance. Following tradition, tribal ceremonies commenced and centuries-old songs were sung. The whale was carved on the beach in preparation for a multi-tribal potlatch feast to celebrate the victory, which would take place the following weekend. Fresh blubber was passed to many members of the tribe. Undeterred by the groups of protesters that had gathered along the reservation, the Makah celebrated with the joy of knowing that the significance of the hunt would provide lasting help for the tribe. Later, on the same day as the killing, a candlelight vigil took place at the Seattle Federal Building with many protesters holding signs. The event was organized as a low-key memorial for the whale that the Makah killed, but it quickly regressed into a series of violent messages against the tribe. Racist remarks were written on several roadside protesters' signs, such as, "Save a whale, harpoon a Makah," and other variations of the same phrase. Death threats were sent to the tribe by anonymous phone calls. Religious leaders in Seattle urged for tolerance as the issue began to spiral. Those who opposed Makah whaling rights prioritized biodiversity and animal rights over the cultural history of the tribe. Opposition has often been racially motivated, driven by the myth that indigenous tradition is fated to be assimilated into modernity for the sake of a growing society. There was immense pressure on the federal government from animal rights groups at this time to seize the Makah's right to whale. There was a lot of fear-mongering about what the hunt meant for the possible future of commercial whaling and gray whale species. As a response to this, in June of 2000, the federal government issued an environmental assessment of the hunt, which was approved in 2001. Unfortunately, pressure on the federal government led to a ruling by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals deciding that more environmental reviews of Makah hunts should be followed through with. The tribe's right to whale has been suspended ever since. The attempted sustainability of such controversial tradition has held the tribe in a continuous legal battle. Debate surrounding the ethics of the Makah's whaling rights still persists today. The tribe has yet to be allowed to follow up to their successful hunt in 1999.